Hello, welcome back to week 2 of Unpicked of the Great British Sewing Bee, where we chat about each episode. And we started off brilliantly last week, Tim. What a great start to the season. And here we are for episode 2, which was...
It certainly seems to have been received quite well by people. I think, reading a couple of the Facebook groups and stuff like that, everyone seemed to think that pretty much the same as we did, that, it was a good start.
Absolutely. And we got comments galore. Thrilled with how many comments we got on that first video. And I'm there for it. Normally week 1 and week 2. Come week 5 or week 6, I sometimes get a bit behind, but I'm up to date. But we thought we'd just put a few of them here of what we had. We had many of you saying how positive it was and what a great start compared to the rest of maybe the last 2 or 3 years. So Suella says, so pleased that Unpicked is back, and thanks for getting your first episode out so quickly. Oh, that's because Ting's on holiday now, so we can feel pretty much starfish. I think the bee has improved tremendously this season, and it looks like they've taken last year's criticisms on board. And many people have said that, and we can perhaps assume that, can't we, Ting? They must have. The production company must have taken something from everyone's comments across social media platforms, don't you think?
I think so. I mean, there's lots of, there's a couple of other shows a bit like ours. You've got the Facebook groups. You've got the general press as well, because the press pick up from social media and everything. And I've seen a couple of articles actually saying that they didn't like this one, but I think that's just the press sensationalizing everything. But I can't imagine that the production company hasn't got their eye on, especially, I'm not saying particularly us, but there are 2 or 3 groups who do similar things.
Yeah.
And they'd be stupid not to be going, well, hang on a minute. But I suppose you've still got to have the wherewithal to kind of take that criticism on board and not just be, well, it's our show and we know exactly what we're doing. If the fans are going, hang on a minute, then you'd hope that they would take some of that on.
Well, it seemed like they had. It was definitely a change. Look at our next commenting from Anya. Good to see you, Anya, who is no longer with us closely anymore, far away over an island watching. I do miss you and her and your little heated discussions.
She's always welcome to come back,
Absolutely. When that little one of yours, Anya, gets a little bit bigger and you get more time. Anya says, so lovely watching you both. Delighted to see the shift this year and great makes overall and on trendish with the pattern challenges. Absolutely. Thank you, Anya, for that. And we got many messages about people seeing the inclusivity and diversity of the models too. Kathy talks about this. Welcome back and welcome to the sewers. Well done and so lovely to see you sew. Great to see that there was time to sew this week. Not a single slipper. It wasn't. Not from anyone, I don't think. I love to see the inclusivity in the room amongst sewers and models, which we did. We didn't comment on that. I know that was on my list to comment, but I forgot that and I forgot the garment of the week. But yes, it was refreshing, I think, wasn't it, Ting?
Yes, yeah. And again, whether that is, whether someone sat down in a room, around November, December time and just went, well, let's just throw everything up in the air and start again. We'll see. Because I mean, let's face it, maybe they've just started well, and next week they'll just fly left, right. I know.
Center. We'll soon see. And a couple more. Carol Ann says, "Welcome back. What a great first episode of Great British Sewing Bee and Unpicked. First impressions: the producers may have listened to the audience and taken note. Great to see a sensible pattern challenge with a realistic time to do it in. And that's what we commented on. And also, look, I also enjoyed the transformation section, possibly for the first time ever, which is lovely. We agree. And lastly, this one made me smile. It's not you complete me, but you complete the sewing bee. The show on BBC is only half the experience. The other half is to hear the post-match analysis. Welcome back. back. Oh, thank you, Joanna. That's lovely. Lovely to have your comments, and lovely to have so many of your comments. Enjoyed reading them. Keep them coming in. It's great to have this discussion every year. We see those same faces coming back every year, and you are welcome, most welcome. Right, so we normally go into the screen that says who has gone, but no one went because Glendora was poorly. So, and understandably so, they then felt they couldn't send someone home because it would then raise too many ifs and buts and fairness and everything. And I think that was the right decision, wouldn't you say, Ting? We were all happy, weren't we?
Yeah, I think, I mean, like we said last week, they do it on most of these shows because you are eliminating someone and you're excluding someone from that judging process. And, having watched Jaina complete the work this week, she's clearly a very competent sewer, but for all we know, last week she could have been absolutely rubbish and should have been the one that gone home. So it's not really fair on everyone else. So but then obviously it puts the pressure on this week because of course we lost two.
We did, absolutely, which we will talk about at the end. You can see I'm in black already because I get attached straight away. I know who I want right away, and he's gone. But we'll talk more about it at the end. Peter, I hope you're watching. I want words with you. I'm devastated. Absolutely. I'm also
told you not to commit too early.
I know. I'm also muddled. Peter, you need to explain to me what happened there. We'll talk about that towards the end in the Made to Measure because it just was a little bit bizarre. Otherwise, let's go to the pattern challenge. Pattern challenge, they had to do a 7-panel cap. Never seen anything like this on the sewing bee before. We had the Baker Boy cap, but because it's Activewear, nice idea. I haven't worn anything like this since I was about 10. Have you, Ting? Are you a cap boy?
Isn't that the point, though?
Yeah.
You know what I'm like, because when they didn't they do shoes one week? And
yeah.
Like you said, we've had that, but I'm not a fan of this because it's not the sort of thing most people would do, which I suppose you could argue is a leveler, because I can't imagine any of those people had sat there and gone, oh yes, I make hundreds of them. But I also just don't think that that's the sort of thing you would make. But I also appreciate that, here we are, what is it, 10, 11 series in, and, we're finding things. But it wasn't one of my favourites, let's put it that way. And I didn't like the look of the cap anyway.
No,
even when it was finished, I don't care who sewed it. The basic design of it, I was like, well, that just looks ridiculous in itself. I understand that, like that one there, they've made up the sample.
That's the sample
Fabrics,
yeah.
So you can see where the 7 panels are. But equally, I'm just like that. It looks like a child. I would not be making that. And it's not. I've got better things to do with my life than make a cap. You just buy that in Tesco's for a couple of quid. So it's not my favourite challenge.
It reminded those colours just reminded me of my ski jacket of the early 80s that I got from C&A. It was that period, wasn't it? But let's have a look. I know we've still got 12, but we'll just have a quick look at 2 or 3 of them just to get an idea. So you can see that's the sample there. We had Yasmin's, who had an issue, I think, with reading the pattern. It said something about leaving 1 centimetre over. Yeah. Oi! Cut to the core with that comment. So it was 1 centimetre extra all the way around, which she covered up. But of course, the production crew got onto Esme and Patrick, didn't they? And said, oi, turn that down. Yeah. And that came out. But they all finished, didn't they? Pretty much.
But we had this discussion last week about colours, and I suppose there was an element of that this week because, like we've just said, with the sample, they sewed all the panels in different colours.
Yeah.
I didn't understand because she said, "Oh, I'm going to go with the colours like of the Jamaican flag, which we can see there with the yellow, black, and green."
Yeah.
So I couldn't understand why she then went for a blue peak. I was just like,
yeah,
it doesn't really then go. Put a black or follow the green,
or the green
all the way down.
Yeah, or the yellow.
I just didn't understand the blue bit.
Yeah.
And it's then when you're like, well, I get what you're doing when you're saying I'm trying to coordinate colours, because that's what we all do. You know, when we pick patterns, and whether that's what you're making curtains, quilts, or shirts, you know, you pick the colours that you want to go. I just felt like, well, you've given us a reason, but then you haven't delivered on that colour choice.
I presume that colour was definitely going to be a factor in the judging because of all the colours. So for this, yes, I can see the judging. Do those colours work? They weren't. They could choose any fabric from the haberdashery, and then the mesh was given to them. Who have we got next? Let's look at Safi, which just reminded me of a jockey hat.
Well, it did, but I mean, this. Sorry, Savvy, but this is a good angle. I feel if you were looking at it face on, it seemed too patchworky, and that it didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it was all blue, but to me, it was like I wouldn't be seen dead in it, because it was too patchworky and too many different things going on. You know, we've got a black and white diamond there. We've got like a marble effect. We've got a bright blue mesh, and then we've got like a sky blue peak. And okay, you could argue it's blue, but blues need to coordinate a bit better.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of them, because they all finished, a lot of them I think came down to the coloured choices and how they work together, being in harmony or not. Peter's, for example. Now, Peter came quite high up in the judges. They liked it. It was very well sewn. Look at that. Those 3 lines of top stitching there. But this, again, it was...
I did kind of say last night that I was kind of in awe of them doing the peak, because that peak is not thick, you know, with the big bit of, I don't even know if you'd call it interfacing, but it's support. You know, to have to sew through 2 layers of fabric and whatever it was inside.
I think they gave them the middle bit, didn't they?
They did. Yeah. But I'm thinking of my machine, like I'd be breaking needles every 5 seconds.
True. They have cool machines. I was chatting with I think Tom in the chat. He recognised the machines. They're not just some genome entry level like they used to be now. They're big old machines now with massive computer display, start-stop button and everything. So they've definitely upped the sewing game too for the sewers, which is great. You're asking the sewers to do so much. Give them good machines, because most people at home have very good machines, don't they, now?
Yeah, and it's not just that peak. If you think that under that headband you've got the sweatband plus the fabric and everything that had been folded over, that's a huge lot to get through. So you are an industrial machine needed.
Yeah. This reminded me of the opening credits of Going Live. Can you remember? It's like, oh my
God, it's all a bit of a
I know. It was the colours, it was the hat and everything. And let's finish off with kits, because basically Peter and Kit were battling for first space, but this is well done.
This is a good example of, well, not only is it sewn well, which makes a difference, but the colour choices. After everything I've said about how I would probably wear this cap, because the colour choices are very complementary.
Yeah.
A lot of the problems seem to be that the colours jarred a bit on top of a bit of wonky sewing and everything like that. But you know, I wouldn't be able to do it because it's too fiddly. You know, to try and do a nice straight line when you're doing it on a tiny cap that you haven't got a lot of manoeuvrability on your machine. You know, that was always going to be an issue in that respect. Especially, like I said, I can't imagine many people have made something like this before. And the small things are always fiddly.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it was between those last 2 that we saw, this one here, Kit and Peter, and it went to Kit. So that now means he won the pattern challenge last week, and he's won the pattern challenge this week too. He is starting to shine a little bit more with his skills, isn't he? People going, oh, right, he's got another one. He's got another win.
Well, yeah, and you've got to remember that when he was introduced to us last week, he's only been sewing for just over a year. So
incredible. Absolutely incredible, isn't it? Okay, let's move on to the transformation challenge. Now, we were thrilled with how they did it last week. Are they going to carry on in the same vein? Let's have a look. The Transformation Challenge. They were given vintage cycling tops, so basically 80s, which they had to transform into a party outfit. They could use 3 tops out of the selection, fastenings, but no other fabric, which is right. Actually, use the tops that you are given. That's how we're judging you. How are you using 3 tops? So I'm glad they're stopping them from using all these extra stuff, because then that stops it being too much of a level playing field then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So 3 tops. What do you think of the round itself compared to what we were talking highly last week?
Well, I'm never a fan of the Transformation Challenge. And, I was pleased with last week's. And to a certain degree, I could buy into this one because they gave them 3 tops. So, if you just purely look at it from a quantity of fabric point of view, you have got enough there to make something halfway decent. When you consider, I would hate to assume, but they all look like they were pretty much men's cycling tops, so they were a little bit bigger, giving you a bit more acreage with your fabric. But the issue I had, and I know you're stuck with what you're given, and I don't know how much of this is the sewers, but some of them and their colour choices, I was just like, what are you thinking putting those together? Some of them were done really well. So we can, like Orla's one, brilliant. Glendora's one, brilliant.
Yeah.
Even Safi's, even though it was slightly obscene, because I don't really think it counted as a skirt.
No.
But the blue and the other one that she used was good. Novello's next to it again, the yellow and black.
That was
some of them really looked and went okay. But then you look at Stuart's, it's like, why have you put that yellow with the black and then you've got the pink and blue fringe on the bottom? And Yasmin's next to it. I mean, it's not as bad, but the colours on the top don't really blend with the colours on the bottom.
No, it sort of did, but
it's where you're like,
Yeah.
and I can't really criticise too much because I would hate this challenge, and I would just be, well, I've got all this fabric, I can turn it into something. But I still would think that I still would like to think that I would go, well, hang on a minute, what are these colours and how are they sitting together? Some of them just didn't sit together. Although, saying that, Peters is all right. I'm not a fan of the pocket. Gaynor's was all right. As I said, Orla's and Glendora's and Safi's and Novello's. But some of the others, I mean, poor old Kaz on the end, I had no idea what she was doing.
No.
It just didn't come together in the end.
Well, this is the outfit issue, because I've learned something from this. A party outfit clearly means you've got to have top and bottom. So there's that pressure, and I think Kaz was loving her top, but then maybe spent so much time on the top. You're then like, oh, it's an outfit. I need my bottoms, and then got caught for time. What about Orla's approach with putting the go days in? Do you? To me, it was like, all right, maybe I've got this prepped already. If I ever do a dress or an outfit, I'm going to put go days in. It just seemed to be very clever.
I think that, that's the same thing. If you've done it before, and it might not have been on this scale or with this type of fabric, but if you've done it before, it is a very good way of adding fullness. And you can obviously use the same fabric if you were doing it properly, and it just looks like a fuller skirt. But what worked really well here is because she obviously then used the blue go days on the plum coloured top. That just meant that you could actually see someone wearing this, and if they did a spin, you'd just see that skirt come out and the colours and everything there. And if it's a skill that you've got, well, that's the whole point, isn't it? That you show off those skills.
Absolutely, and it just seemed to fit perfectly, right? You've got the one colour for the one jersey, and then you'll use the other colours of the jersey for the go days. It just seemed very, very clever thinking from Orla and Glendora. So we got to see her shine a bit because obviously she was poorly, so we saw her a lot more. And that was a really sophisticated party outfit. I felt that black and red one. I've got a close up. Let's go. There we go.
I wasn't a huge fan of the pink sleeve.
No, if it would have been red, it would have been stunning, wouldn't it?
There's an argument to say that if you were genuinely going, oh, I need to turn this into a skirt, you wouldn't put the pink sleeves on. If you took those off, that would be a very nice top, sleeveless top.
Yeah,
that would have still, or top, a dress. It would have worked well. It's just that you were told to incorporate them. So she's done the best she could because, pink and red. And then she's got the black and pink with the black and red. So, there's an attempt to try and coordinate it there. But if you were doing this for real, you just wouldn't put those pink sleeves on. It'd be very nice without them.
But think of the first round last week with the gathered sleeves and the go day. Look at these skills here with the sleeve and the pelmet there in 90 minutes. And
I know that it's a stretch fabric because those cycling tops are like the Lycra top.
Yeah.
But the way it fits that model, she's done it so that you've still got that sweep and the curve. And I know some of that will come from the stretch, but it's not stretching at the seams where she's sewn it incorrectly and it's all going to pop apart. She's got it fitting well as well.
You said Novello. I like the look of Novello's. Let's have a look at that in close up. I haven't got a picture of the back because the back was stunning too because it was scooped right down, wasn't it?
But again, for 90 minutes, that is wearable.
Absolutely. And we then have let's look at a close up of Orla's go days there. I just think that would look good, great on Strictly, given a little spin and it'll whoosh up like that.
Salsa dance,
absolutely. Excuse me. I've chosen Dan because I thought the idea was great and the back was great too with this.
He was one of the ones. There was a couple of them. We mentioned Kaz earlier, where I think they focused so much on the top and getting the top right that they then suddenly realised that they had about 10 minutes for the bottom.
Yeah,
and then that's kind of where it let them down because colour-wise, going back to what I said a moment ago about coordinating colours, he's got the colours there. He's got the pink, the blue, the black. There's nothing jarring on there, but he just lost his way with the skirt.
He was really going for it with the design when he had it on the model because he was going like this and he was doing this. Then he was chopping away, wasn't he? I would have liked to have seen that out of the edit, just the camera on him and watching that thought process. Good to watch. And then kits. There was something about this. Again, it's that going live. It's that CNA look. It's that red, yellow, blue, green. The design of this reminded me of a Miro painting as well. It was just so clever. Is it not really clever? That's not a fluke, is it? This is clever.
No, I think we can agree that Kit is clever with his sewing. I liked the colour blocking. I didn't like the bagginess on the side because the fabric couldn't hold its shape. If you think of the one he did last week with the pleat that went up the side and it had interfacing in and it could hold the shape. This was very drapey, when it's not skin tight, this is very drapey fabric. And so he kind of sewn this cross panel that then comes off the hip with that kind of shape. But it doesn't hold the shape because it's just like no. So I think, I love the colour blocking. I think the colours go really well. It's not like the others but I sometimes think that you have to rein it in a bit, bearing in mind what you've got. I would have made this either more figure fitting or more dress shaped. Yeah. Rather than trying to make it stand out because the fabric won't take it. The fabric won't hold the shape. So if you look there on the side where the red is, it's already hanging and kind of dragging it down. Whereas if he'd have kept it sleeker, like Glendora's, and done the panelling, even the panelling at that angle where it's coming up rather than just, square, then I think you still would have got the elegance of the shape. Because, look at the shape of the cut on that yellow and the white and the red. It's got that there.
Let's look at
I just don't think that it was the right thing to do. Look, you can see there next to Gainer's one. It's just hanging on that hip because it won't hold the shape. It's Lycra.
The results for this round, Safi was at the bottom because it was deemed as...
Obscene?
No, great party outfit. I loved the frills around the boobs.
On it and I'm like, that's never coming down.
Yes, it was just basically a top. It wasn't an outfit. And then Kaz at the bottom, 11th. So Kaz 11th, Safi 12th. Then we jump right to the top. Novello 3rd. And then Yasmin second with that lovely, I quite like that, it just reminds me of the Olympics, and then Kit first again. So he's got first of the pattern challenge, first in this one. He's going for all three, maybe. So that's where we are after the transformation challenge. So where are we going into the made to measure? Well, Safi is back in trouble from coming last in that round, and then Jess in the one before that with the cap. So they were the two ones maybe to look out for, or who had to work really hard to try and save themselves or come up with a good make. Excuse me. I think something went down the wrong way earlier. I've been coughing.
I think based on last week, I think not to kind of, like we say, we're not here to attack the sowers, but I almost went into this week going, Safi is probably going to be one of the ones that go. So when we got to this point, because we knew we were losing two, I wasn't sure on the second one at this point, but I did kind of feel that maybe after last week, accumulating up with what had already happened this week, I was kind of like, I think Safi's going to be one of the two. There was still obviously scope for her to do phenomenal. Last
indeed.
challenge, but there was two going home, and I just feel that there was a bit of history from last week.
Yeah.
And I know we've always said you shouldn't look at last week, but we are looking at last week because nobody went home for that very reason. Yeah. So there is an overhang of, okay, maybe Glendora would have turned out to be useless and she should have gone home, so therefore that's why we were in the. But there's also the fact that Safi did not do very well last week, so I was kind of rooting for her, but because of two people going home, I was like, right, but who is the other one? And at this point, I genuinely didn't know
it was
who that might be.
No. You thought some people were safe because of maybe coming first or second and coming higher up, but we know that bigger weighting on made to measure. Let's remind ourselves of made to measure, everyone. Sarah says it at the beginning of each made to measure. It's where you are making a model. You have a live model and you have to fit your garment to fit the model. She says that. So there we are. I have to admit something. When she said athleisure, I was like, I had to watch it back on catch up because I couldn't hear what she was saying. I was saying, are you... What? Are you saying after leisure? I thought it was a northern. I thought after. Well, I've never heard of after leisure. I then had to Google it. I've never heard of such a phrase. Am I getting old?
What? You've never heard of athleisure?
Athleisure? No.
Well, it's always kind of been around because people have always slobbed around in their joggers.
Well, I just thought that was leisure wear.
It became much more of a thing with COVID because people. And I was one of them, where because you're sat on a Zoom meeting like this, you only need to worry about this. So you would buy like the jogger, or not even a proper jogger, that kind of jersey, trousers. I had 2 or 3 pairs of those because you can just sit there and be comfortable. You haven't got to be trussed up in everything. But it was also this concept that, which they did quite well there, is that it could be something that you're slobbing around, but you could be at home during the day and then actually just go, I'm now off down the gym, and you haven't really got to worry about getting changed. I don't think I'd go to the gym and then come home and sit in it the other way around.
I see.
There's this idea that you don't have to be all trussed up, which really exploded.
Right.
And I talked about it quite a lot at work with the students because being business. It's a market that exploded after COVID, and pre that you would have just had a jogger that you perhaps lounged around in, but you now have this athleisure wear, which is just, it's not as slobby as sitting around in an oversized t-shirt and a pair of old grey joggers. It is something that doubles up as that elsewhere. I can't believe you, the gym bum,
I know, but me, the one who does not. and then when Patrick said it's got to be suitable for physical activity and relaxing, I'm like, that's like how can you have that? But then when the contestants explained it, because it appeared so many of them were doing 3 garments. I'm like, why are you all doing 3 garments? But then I understood. So you had your leisure, your gym stuff, like your yoga top, your bra and your yoga bottoms. But then the leisure wear, you just chuck over a hoodie when you've finished your yoga and you're going to meet a mate for coffee. So I can then understand that, even though I struggled at first. But then it did mean the pressure was on the sewers to do many garments, because you kind of really then needed 3, didn't you?
Well, I think having 3 garments was the whole point, because it is this idea that something comes off,
Yeah.
and you do your sporty activity, and then something goes back on again. But it does create that pressure, because they still only had 5 hours or
4.5. 4.5.
Yeah, well, 4.5.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, we weren't making loads of pleats or
No,
anything like
true.
last week. It was just making sure that maybe
bra.
it was a vest top,
Yeah,
or something that fitted relatively easy. And then they spent a bit of time maybe working on the other bit, the bit that went over the top or something.
But there were some stunning makes, and this is where I'm thinking, this lot of sewers are quite amazing. So many of them going for 3 and absolutely achieving it, knocking it out of the park. So let's go into it and take a look at a few. That's a good one to start with. Look at this.
I was going to say, you'd say that was shopboard.
I know,
because look at the sewing and the cut and everything and the fit. It's just brilliant.
Let's look at the front of that. There we go. Allers.
I loved it. I think what was great, we're saying that you put a lot of pressure on yourself, and everything still has to be hemmed or whatever.
Yeah.
But the fact that the top it doesn't even cover the bust.
Yeah.
But it's enough just to keep your arms on that warm. I love that design. And you can see that out on the high street as well. But it did make me chuckle, because I'm just like, well, where's the rest of the top? But that's the whole point. It's still fashionable.
Again, I'm going to have to admit, I've never heard of a cropped hoodie. I've never seen this design ever. Am I old? I'm old, aren't I? You see the students on non-uniform day. Are we seeing them wear this, or is it a girl thing? And are we seeing them wearing it?
Well, it's definitely a girl thing.
Okay.
But I haven't seen anything perhaps in school wearing that, because I think the whole midriff thing would cause too many...
On non-uniform day?
No.
All right.
There's a whole list of rules
that
go home for non-uniform these days. But I think, looking at the general fashion, especially with some of the sixth formers, and yeah, I've seen them in shops as well.
Wow.
It
must,
one of those
well, it clearly is, because I think 3 of them did this whole cropped hoodie, which makes me think, wow, what the chances of that? But everything, Orla, you are amazing. This just... I could see people...
And her age again.
It's phenomenal. The detail of I know... I suppose when you sew, you are into detail, really. But the grey on the orange, and then the orange on the grey, it is... And let's just go back to that. Look at that binding, everybody. Yeah. But it wasn't just Orla. Let's have a look at Kaz's. I love the look of this.
I love this one because it was a tighter fit of the cropped hoodie. So I don't think she used the thick sweatshirt material for that. But it works really well because, again, you're just wanting something to cover your arms and shoulders that you can then just whip that off.
Absolutely. Whip it off, play a bit of tennis or whatever it is, and then meeting up for a coffee, put it back on again.
I'd like to think that I was... So they used Jackie Chan, didn't they?
Yes, yeah.
But as soon as I went, I was like, well, that's Kill Bill, which I know was also inspired by Jackie. But I just felt that, for someone our age, I'm not saying that we wouldn't with Jackie Chan, but I felt that the Kill Bill thing would have been more relevant as a reference than Jackie Chan. But there you go. I don't think many Jackie Chan fans would be watching the sewing bit.
We talked about Glendora, who is shining through. Let's take a look at hers. What do you think of Glendora's?
When she first described it, because, going back to our initial discussion there about what is athleisure, I was just kind of like, I don't know if this fits the brief. But at the same time, I was like, well, I get it, because she explained it was for yoga. But I can't remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she didn't take the top off, did she? The top, it was just the top of the
No,
trousers.
it was.
So from an athleisure point of view, I just felt that you wouldn't be doing yoga in that big top. I understand the baggy yoga
Yeah.
pants thing, but I just felt that she got away. I'm not saying she should have made three things, but I felt that there wasn't the two outfits there, and I didn't feel that just undoing the zip was enough to say, well, that's what you do for yoga.
Well, as far as we know, there was nothing that says they need three outfits to get through it. So it's a substantial top, that isn't it? That coat with the
the designers love it. I love it.
And the fact that she didn't want to go for the man-made fibers. It was linen, wasn't it? Linen and cotton that she was using.
You want it to breathe if you're doing yoga.
Absolutely.
You don't want to be wrapped up in a
no, like a sausage. And so many good makes. But I'm sorry now, Peter. If you do watch, I'm going to have to come to you now because it's. I don't know. I can't explain it, Peter. You're going to have to. As I was watching it, I was. Oh no! Is he in a mood? Is he upset because he hadn't got a pattern for the jersey top? Let's show Peter's, which then got me confused. It's like, well, there are loads of patterns for jersey tops. Why did he not have a pattern for the jersey top? He literally based it on his one and the neck. I was a bit confused about that.
Oh, I think, in some respects, that's fine. We've all done it before where you use, an old pair of trousers or an old T-shirt or something to help make the pattern. I don't see a problem with that. And I can't remember whether it was this week or last week when he said that, I think it was this week, that he said that he'd been sewing for quite a long time and that his mum or whoever it was had taught him to make patterns with newspaper. And I don't have a problem with that. I've made stuff where you look at, or you use an old top to do that.
Oh yeah, but you're not going on the sewing bee.
Well, there's that, but then there's the execution of it, isn't there? You can use that as a pattern. I don't care what you use.
Oh, okay.
I don't care whether you do the draping and don't actually have a pattern.
True.
But the point is, you then execute it well, and the cuffs and the neckline just didn't seem to sit right. I mean, the top itself, the sleeves are in fine. They're on the shoulder here. I don't know how far it came down. It looks like it's tucked under a little bit. So to me, it looks a little short, but it could be that it's just tucked under a bit. But the cuffs and the collar, it just was like...
yeah, it's because he didn't have a pattern, though, isn't it? But he got the measurements wrong for the binding, and so he had the excess there.
But I know we're always very, and I'm not getting directly at him here, but it was a made-to-measure. There was a model there, and part of the issue is that you measure it to fit your model.
Absolutely.
So, it's all right saying, well, he's got a bit of extra there on the neck, but he literally had someone stood in front of him. You measure the neck.
I started shouting at the TV. I didn't throw a slipper because obviously I had signed up to Team Peter, and so I was going, why aren't you measuring, Peter? And then what made me even more confused was Esme and Patrick were then having their little chat as if the production crew had said to them, "Oi, Esme, go and talk to Peter because he hasn't measured the model. He hasn't because so Esme said, "Oh, make sure you measure the shorts. If you haven't done the jumper, make sure you measure the shorts on him." And he was like, "Oh, all right." And I was like, I said to you, he's quite deadpan. And I'm thinking, you're not going to do it, Peter, are you? You're not going to do it. And I was like, no. But he didn't do it, did he? Why didn't he do it?
Well, I don't know. We'll never know unless he voluntarily tells us somehow. But the hint is in the name. It's a made-to-measure challenge.
Yeah.
Now, we've all done it before, and okay, not in a competitive environment because we would unpick what we've done and correct it to the best of our ability. And I get that in a competition, you're like, well, they're telling you you've got 20 minutes left, 5 minutes left, 1 minute left, or whatever. When he realised that the shorts weren't right, and he's kind of like, oh, I'm just going to nip around here. Well, there was a little bit of me that went, that's not really going to work. But I was like, okay, well, if you're just putting a bit of a nip or a tuck in, fair
you
enough.
have hope. You have hope.
When Esme turned the model round, or whoever, I don't know if it was Esme or the other one, but Patrick. But they then showed how much he'd taken out of the waist and just run the sewing machine up the back to make it fit.
Yeah.
I like I said, I don't want to, because we don't know. Maybe there was other things going on.
Of course.
It is kind of indefensible in a challenge called the made to measure to then have, what was that, 4 inches?
I know.
On the waist.
And this is when
as far as I know, the model wasn't on Ozempic. They didn't lose 4 stone in between the first measurement and the second.
No. This is where I messaged you and went, has he been taken over by an alien? This is not what we had last week, Peter. Who got Garment of the Week on Made to Measure? I felt so sad for him.
I think that was the thing, wasn't it? Is that he'd done so well last week, and we'd had that bit of family history that he's got his daughters and he makes the clothes, and I was like, we've got a male sewer here who's actually quite experienced, and especially having daughters plus himself, you think, well, he's made female clothes, he's made male clothes, there was that bit of hope there, but unlike you, I won't pin my colours to the mast straight away, and you went in too quick. It's your fault. It's your fault because you put the kiss of death on these people.
I'm sorry, Peter. I'm sorry. I'm in mourning. I have put all my black gear on because I'm devastated. Absolutely devastated. No! Oh, dear. But that's what we love about the Sewing Bee, isn't it? With these type of programs, you watch it because I was excited to watch this week because you connect with people and you want to see them, and I haven't had that for a good 2 or 3 seasons. So, Peter, what am I going to do? Oh dear.
We've always said it as well.
Yeah.
We've had it before in the past where you've had a sewer who's been quite good for maybe 4 or 5 weeks, and then on week 6 they just stumble, and the judges are, they do their job. You cannot turn around and say that it would have been all right for him to stay when you see what else was produced. Even Safi's against was good, and so you felt, even if there was only one person going home this week, there is an argument to say that Safi had potentially saved herself. Because
some of her skills.
How do you justify not sending him home if there had only been one person to go home that week? Yeah.
But we've got 12 sewers still, so we can't go through all the makes because otherwise we'll be here for an hour and a half. And Ting's his wage packet is already too expensive for me to pay for him for an hour and a half. So many makes. Gainers, the idea of that roller derby was lovely. She just didn't get time to do the skirt, but that was still beautiful. Kit's one with that dusky pink with the white underneath. Novello's one again in that plum. I love that plum with the white hoodie over the top. So many, but sadly, yes. Go on.
Well, I think again, and I know your hands are tied with the transformation challenge because obviously that's what's put in front of you. But if you look at the colour coordination in that final made to measure challenge, they've all got an eye for colour. Which is then when you go retrospectively back to the racing jersey one, you're like, well, what happened to that eye there? Because some of those colour choices were awful.
So before we go to see who went home, who got Garment of the Week, which we missed off last week, Garment of the Week, of course, instantly, we all agreed. We absolutely, well done, Orla. Beautiful Garment of the Week. And then we have to wait and see who went home. 2 people. We pretty much thought it was Safi, but by that point, we probably knew it was going to be Peter. And especially when I rewatched it today just to go some notes. I had to live that nightmare again. And I even saw a little bit at the beginning of the Made to Measure where Peter was going, Oh yeah, I haven't practiced it at all. I'm just making it up as I go along. And whilst some people could superbly do that on that challenge of what 4.5 hours. Peter. Yeah,
Well,
you
yeah,
got
but
garment of the
going
week,
back,
but
going
yeah,
back to what we were saying, he's an experienced sewer.
yeah,
But then maybe that's the hubris of thinking he can get away with it because
maybe.
he's made loads of stuff in the past. But I'm not saying he should have made the whole thing in practice, but you would have hoped at some point in the last couple of years he'd made something similar, so he could say, "Oh yeah, well I made a pair
Yeah,
of these
yeah,
shorts last
yeah.
year," or so that's where you can kind of let that off a bit. But because it was only a top and a pair, it wasn't like the half hoodie thing that
No.
we've been seeing and everything like that.
So there we go. Yes, the second one to go home was Peter from getting Garment of the Week and stunning us all from week one. And for me getting my team ready, I'd got all those T-shirts I've got printed with Team Peter on it, Ting. I've just lost loads of money. We sadly had to say goodbye to Peter and Safi. Gutted. But
Get over it.
I know,
Get over it.
indeed.
Who's the curse you're putting on next?
Well, my sort of second and third favourites are potentially. I'm still with Gaynor with using those embroidery stitches on a machine. Thinking of Glendora because she's like, but I am now getting a bit of a soft spot for Orla. For a Go Days and for that stunning Garment of the Week. But I'm not going to say any more for there because I don't want to curse Orla. Have you got any ones? I know you don't normally say, but any ones that you're just like little snifters?
I think that, we did mention it last week that the standard is very high with these sewers.
Yeah.
Even though Safi and Peter have gone, if you look at what he did last week, and if you look at some of the things that Safi had done, even her made to measure this week, they're not bad sewers. They're not struggling to do the stuff, which we've seen in especially the last couple of years where the challenges have been a bit off. That if you weren't as experienced, you'd struggle because the challenge was some weird garment they'd want you to do. But I think everyone it has been a really good sewer from a starting point. So I think that although it makes good telly to have someone who doesn't know what they're doing, we haven't really got that. So again, even trying to pick someone out there, as soon as they've got their feet under the table a bit more, you've got that. I mean, we've got Kit, who has been wonderful last week and wonderful this week, but as we've said, we've had it before. You get to week 5 or 6, and he might just burn out and be able to take it. So I'll hang fire for another 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. I am just loving this series already. It's like I am there for it. So much so, I've gone to Beyond the Pink Door, a bricks and mortar fabric shop. I've bought loads of fabric, Ting. Look at this lovely knit. I've got some knit cable wear. I've got loads of ribbing, so I'm up for this activewear.
So when I come over on Saturday and I see it slung in the corner where the pattern has been misread.
Viewers, this is the second cut to the core.
How many times have I had to read a pattern and pick it up off the floor and go, you actually need to do this?
I'm ignoring him, viewers. Look at this one. I've got more ribbing. Look at this beautiful one. Oh, do you know? You love it now, do you? But I thought...
No, I think that will be really, like you say, as a vest top, under like that black that you've got on there, I think it would look really nice.
Right, that's what we're making Saturday then.
No, I want to see you work with that knit fabric just to throw it away.
I have no idea what to do with that. Viewers, let me know if you've got any tips. Lovely having your company. Let us know all your comments. Try and keep it, as always, remember the sewers could be watching and we'd love to read them. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, which is Ting's favourite Design Icons Week.
Is it going to be inspired by...
Absolutely. Cheers, everyone. Bye.